requirements to the extent necessary to allow telephonic or video conference meetings in response to COVID-19. In accordance with the law, notice of this meeting of the Board of Weslaco Independent School District has been posted online for at least 72 hours. If not all board members are not yet gathered in a central physical location, there will be a quorum in attendance at this meeting by the use of video conference or telephone call. The board is utilizing Google Meets for this meeting and telephone transmission, which allows two-way communication for members of the public during public comments. The live audio of this meeting is being broadcast online. As we would at any person meeting, members of the public who have followed the instructions on the meeting notice for registering for public comments will be called at the telephone number they have provided to speak up to 5 minutes. All other meeting procedures will adhere to board adopted procedures to the extent possible. A recording of this meeting is being made and will be available to the public at a later date. We apologize in advance for any unforeseeable difficulties and ask for your patience as we navigate these conditions. A call to order and establish of a quorum. Today is September 24, 2020, and it is 5:49. I call this special board meeting to order. I will now call the name of each board member who will acknowledge their presence by saying, here. Mr. Lopez?
Here in person.
Dr. Rivera?
Here.
Mr. Kennedy?
Present.
Dr. Jaime Rodriguez?
Here.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Here.
Coach Cuellar?
Here.
And the minutes shall reflect that I'm also present. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is in attendance here at the boardroom. Item 11, public comments. In attempt to provide the most up-to-date information and clarify any uncertainty related to any agenda items, those that have signed up for any public comments will be allowed to comment during the board's consideration of the agenda item for which that person signed up to speak about. So instead of having a standalone public comments portion of the meeting before any information is conveyed, public comments will be heard during the discussion portion of each agenda item for which someone may have signed up to speak about. For example, if someone signed up to speak on item 4, when the board gets to that agenda item, the administration will be permitted to present the information on that item. Then those who signed up to speak on that item will be given their opportunity to comment, followed by further board deliberation. Then we will move to the next agenda item and follow the same structure. At this time, I will entertain a motion to change the order of the day to go to the closed meeting to cover the matters stated on the agenda item number 9.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Gonzalez. A second.
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion by Mr. Gonzalez and a second by Dr. Jaime to go into closed meeting. Any discussion? Take a vote. Say aye when I call you out your name. Mr. Kennedy?
Aye.
Dr. Rivera?
Aye.
Dr. Jaime?
Aye.
Mr. Gonzalez?
Aye.
Mr. Lopez?
Aye.
And Coach Cuellar?
Aye.
Motion carries. At this time, it is 5:51, and we will be going into closed meeting to discuss the following. A, personal matters. Number 1, employment of personnel, resignations. Number 3, deliberation regarding the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee. Item A, deliberation of a transition to campus instructional plan. C, consultation with attorney, pending or contemplated litigation, a settlement offer, or a matter in which the duty of the attorney to the Weslaco ISD under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflict with Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. Item number 1, under C, will be consultation regarding transition to campus instructional plan. So it is 5:52, and we will go into executive session. We'll begin with item 5, discussion of possible action for the board to approve submission of a second, my fault. Item 5, let me clarification. Discussion of possible action for the board to approve the transition to campus instructional plan. Dr. Canales.
I don't think I'm on. Okay, good evening, Board of Trustees. So for this item, just like to acknowledge several staff members have been very, very involved in this, from our principals to our Teachers of the Year for 2020 to our District Advisory Committee. Feedback has been gotten from our principals to staff, teachers, and parents as required. And we do have a transition plan that we'd like you to approve for the next 4-week period. So before we begin the transition plan, staff has been working really hard, from our custodians to our maintenance to principals, our teachers at home teaching remotely, our students, and we've been securing supplies that we need so that we are ready. This has been a process that started well before the school year started. So we do have PPEs, that is personal protective equipment for teachers and for students, ranging from, and I don't know if it's probably on the next slide, ranging from teacher desk shields, and they're big, they're 4 feet by 3 feet. We have student shields for the desk. We have teacher face shields. We have masks. We have gloves. We have disinfectants. We have wipes. And it's important for us to keep everybody safe. So one slide back. So you can see the products. You can see somebody dressing with the supplies that have been provided for teachers. And you can see on the next slide the dust shields. So for the next 4-week period, remember our Texas Education Agency granted us 4 weeks of remote online instruction. Our agency has stated that on-campus instruction must be made available to our students who do not have connectivity. Our departments have worked hard. Board of Trustees, you have approved over $4.7 million in technology over the last 5 years to make sure that we have a device for every single child, a Chromebook, a computer. In addition to that, you've approved lots of money for connectivity, for hotspots. We recently learned that we were receiving a grant through T-Mobile for 2,500 plus more hotspots for children that have connectivity issues. Our teachers have worked hard. They have been trained. They're teaching remotely. Hopefully they're having fun, every single one of them doing that, engaging students and keeping up the great tradition of Weslaco providing a solid education to students. So for the Weslaco ISD transition plan that we're asking you to approve tonight, for the next 4 weeks, we're asking for week 5, which begins of September 28th through October 2nd. That's Monday and Tuesday. And the setting would be teachers who volunteer, no students for those days. These teachers will eventually assist with proctoring. So Wednesday to Friday of next week, we will open the doors to students with connectivity issues. They can't connect, so therefore they're not learning. They're not getting the benefit of their wonderful teachers. We have to allow certain CTE students who have courses that require face-to-face instruction 1 day a week into our schools. The students will report to classrooms with proctors. And the high school will begin their hybrid for those students with connectivity issues. And that model has been approved previously and has been submitted to the Texas Education Agency. And that's where high school students who have connectivity issues, some of them will come on Monday and Tuesday, and others will come on Wednesday and Thursday.
And for the entirety of that week, it's only volunteers coming in. Volunteer teachers.
For staff,
Mr. Kennedy.
yes.
We're asking for teachers who volunteer.
Okay.
Next slide.
Week 6, which is October 5th through the 9th, Monday through Friday, only teachers again who volunteer For staff members who are already working at our campuses on site, and for teachers who volunteer, we will open up the campuses for their students. Students, again, will report to proctors. And in that setting, they will use remote learning, synchronous learning, to learn from their teachers, for those teachers who choose to continue to work remotely. Next slide. Week 7, October 13th through 16th. October the 12th is a staff development day for our teachers, for our staff. So Tuesday through Friday, again, only teachers who volunteer. Student groups are the same. Students report to their proctors for Tuesday through Friday. And we'll correct the slide. Week 8, Monday through Wednesday, again, only teachers who volunteer. Student groups remain the same. Students report to proctors. At the end of that week, October 22nd to the 23rd, and this is subject to TEA approving Weslaco ISD and then board approval to apply for an additional 4-week transition waiver. So let me repeat, TEA is allowing, perhaps they have to approve it, for a third 4-week waiver. So subject to TEA approval of an additional 4-week transition waiver and then board approval. If we don't get that, then October 22nd to 23rd, all teachers report to set up their rooms and prepare for students. Those 2 days when they're at the campus, they'll continue to teach virtually. And here's why that is so important. If TA does not allow us to apply for a third transition waiver, then on the following week, week 9, any student who wishes to attend to school reports. So we have to be ready to receive students whose parents have indicated that they want their children in school. So this concludes the administration's recommendation for a transition plan for the next 4 weeks, beginning Monday, September the 28th.
On the setting, you say you're saying proctors. Is that due to the fact that you might not have enough teachers, or what is the purpose?
Yes, if we don't have enough teacher volunteers, remember, this is all parent choice. And the children we must allow in school is children who have connectivity issues. So if we don't have enough teacher volunteers for the number of students who still have connectivity issues, then we'll have to look for proctors.
So we're going to pay others to come in. Is there a possibility that we can add pay to our teachers that are volunteering?
It's a possibility. It would take board discussion and action at a future meeting.
Okay, because I think that when this all started, we had hazard pay. And at this point, I think our teachers are those going into our school buildings possibly are going through the same issue or issues coming up. Therefore, I think that we need to look at that, giving our teachers extra pay for the volunteers that are coming in, because I mean that would keep us from having to hire proctors. I mean it's like the teacher or the proctor. So I think we need to offer that to our teachers.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
And along those lines, if I may, I think that's a good call. But like we've asked teachers to be volunteers. I know that as difficult as it is, I'd like for the paraprofessionals to have options too, if it's possible.
Is that better?
Better.
Okay. I unmuted this thing because I wasn't. Anyways, long story short, I just want to know all our staff that we're taking into consideration everyone's wishes, and to look at all the possibilities, based on choice, because we value everyone equally, and I'd like for everybody to have the same opportunity, and please look at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
Building off of what Coach Cuellar is saying, I think one of the things we're trying to accomplish here is giving our teachers the flexibility to continue to work from home for the next 3 weeks, unless they so choose to voluntarily go in. The issue is by being out, though, we're hiring substitutes. We have paras taking their spots to monitor the children. And so I personally don't like the fact that we have a case system of teachers and then paras, instructional facilitators, counselors, and everyone else who has to still put their lives on the line. I understand. I mean, we had a 2-hour discussion in the back, and I don't know how we can solve the problem. But I do agree if there's a way we can allow them to maybe rotate or something where they're not always on the line, I think that's the way we should proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy.
And so clarification with this plan, teachers will be coming back on October 22nd through the 23rd, correct?
For the clarification, TEA is allowing a second, if you will, 4-week transition period. Let's say September 28th begins the first 4-week transition period. They're allowing it under certain conditions. TEA has stated that we will have to send an email. And Mr. Aguilar, can you please read what TEA has said? Because I know that regarding that second transition beyond the 8 weeks. And you're presenting, yeah, it's presenting.
So this kind of falls in line with the information that came out today in regards to extending it an additional 4 weeks. That's for weeks 9 through 12, correct?
Yes, it is. Now, but there's certain things, TEA, and it's up here. Mr. Aguilar, would you like to read it, please?
So this was fresh off today, off from TA Commissioner Murat. School systems that need more than the additional 4-week extended transition window should email waivers at ta.texas.gov for information on requesting additional transition days. Any additional transition window will require board approval after preliminary TA plan feedback has been received. Any transition window extension plan would have to include increasing level of allowed on-campus instruction. Note, Governor Abbott's Executive Order 30 describes certain areas of the state where certain business occupancy levels are raised to 75% and others that remain at 50%. The agency will take into consideration whether school systems are located in whole or in part in areas that remain at the 50% threshold when determining additional transition day waiver approval.
When would we have to vote? Or what do we need to do to get that extra transition plan? I think the board is ready to do whatever we need to do to get that started.
We need to, administration, working with the teams that we worked with on the first one, would need to start working on it and start preparing for it, and then emailing TA of our plans, and here it is, and then requesting it.
How soon do you anticipate we could do that?
I think we work pretty fast. I would say like before, let's see, where are we? We're going to be in week 5, 6, probably by week 7. So before we hit that week 8, maybe sooner.
Just to clarify, we as a district, there's been talk by staff that we failed or missed the deadline for a waiver. We have not missed any deadlines for any waivers.
No,
these are waivers that we're filing and we're doing it in a timely manner, correct?
Yes, we are. When we presented the last board meeting, I think it was the 14th, and even before, we had the timeline. So we got a little bit behind the timeline, but we still can apply. We still can submit this waiver.
Is to do this opening of schools in a slow transition manner.
As
correct?
presented.
I want to say that I'm concerned, very concerned with the use of proctors. And once we start school, I think every boy and girl in our schools deserves a certified, degreed teacher in front of them. So I'm not sure that proctors would be the way to go. because parents would not feel comfortable having their sons or daughters in a classroom after missing school since March of last year, and then to have a substitute or someone that's not degreed or certified. So I'm concerned with the use of proctors. And I think either we pay the volunteers, as mentioned, either a little more money, or we find a way that for every boy and girl that comes into our schools to have a certified degree teacher in front of them every single day and not a proctor.
Good points by Dr. Rivera there. You know, a proctor versus a certified. And I think if, like Mr. Lopez said and Mr. Kennedy, the extra pay for those volunteer teachers that will come in will be beneficial. Yeah, because they're taking the time that they could have worked remotely, but they want to come to work from campus. So.
Can we talk about the school supplies a little bit, like the PPE that's going to be distributed to the campuses?
Yes.
Okay. So how are they distributed to the campuses themselves? I mean, do we have the PPE sitting at the warehouse and it's sent to
Mr. Pena and his staff at the warehouse have done a great job. They've been working with Ms. Kaufman, Susan Kaufman, Dr. Garcia, Sergio Garcia, Oscar Rios at times. So they're delivering them through the nurses department. And that's the way they're delivering. So as they come, they deliver. So several items have been delivered. The teacher desk shields that you see before you will be right here. Will start being delivered. And I don't know the numbers Mr. Sanchez provided. Oh, here they are. I can't read that. Mr. Aguilar, can you please read it?
Yes, sir. Before you, Mr. Kennedy, you have there, this is a breakdown of what's already been distributed. And we have a team that's been working very closely in our district, through our maintenance department, Coach Riojas, Dr. Garcia, Orlando Peña, Susan Kaufman, they've all been very involved with our maintenance department. So what you have before you, this is a list that was sent out to our campus principals on anything else that they were missing on what has already been delivered prior to this list being sent out earlier this week. So what we want to do is we want to make sure you've already received the PPE, your nurse has received it. You've received everything from disposable masks, gloves, reusable face shields, the desk shields and the student and the teachers, those are being ordered, so those are going to be coming in. We've received some already, as Dr. Canales talked about, and as well as the supplies, as you see in yellow, hand sanitizer, disinfecting spray, dry wipes. These are additional that they're requesting, and right now they're working very closely to make sure that all these are filled on time before transition begins.
So the yellow are the ones that we're trying to get to them. The ones in blue are the ones that they should have in inventory as of today.
So they have inventory that they've already received, the bulk of it, and these are just pending items based on increased numbers of students coming in and staff coming in. They just want to make sure this is what we're still lacking. So they're monitoring this daily through our departments, and they want to make sure that they're issuing out those deliveries as soon as possible.
Okay.
In addition to that, we had Ford NGL, who works with something called College Connect, who's donated an additional 50,000 masks to Weslaco ISD. And as you may recall, TA did provide these PPEs to districts, but Commissioner Matthew even said this is probably enough for only 2 months. So our team has been budgeting and ordering and getting ahead of it so that we don't run out. So we'll probably need to be ordering PPE equipment, and disinfectants throughout the school year.
Could you please include this inventory sheet in the weekly update that we received?
Yes,
Thank you.
we can. You're welcome.
Any final comments, Dr. Canales? Or any other board
No,
members?
Board of Trustees, just, everybody's been working really, really hard. These are very, very different times. We thank everybody for the teamwork and for the spirit to keep, learning going in whatever situation we have and leadership. And that's basically it. So we just ask that you approve the transition plan so we can submit the waiver to the Texas Education Agency. And we're set for the next 4 weeks with the possibility of another transition after that.
I want to make one more comment, Mr. Nieto.
Yes, sir.
I want for administration to be sensitive to all the employees, not just the teachers. There are many employees out there that have some kind of health condition. So I challenge them to study every case individually, case by case, and help every employee out there that has some kind of need related to health. So be sensitive to all the employees of the district.
Thank you, Dr. Rivera.
Good point, Dr. Rivera.
How does,
Well said.
Ivan, can I ask a question about like if an employee has an underlying health condition, how can they bring that to the attention of HR? Is that something I can bring up in this item or not?
Well, I guess as it relates to the employee and the transition, if they're going to be participating in the transition plan, you can ask the question in
Okay,
that context.
let
yeah.
me phrase it that way. So let's say we have an employee who has an underlying health condition, and the next 3 weeks they're working from home, but they don't volunteer to go in. And looking at the 4th week at the transition, looking at October 22nd when they have to go back to campus, and this underlying condition may affect their ability to go back to work. How can they let the administration know about that?
They can, well, I'm going to let Mrs. Segura, she's been working really, really hard with Mr. La Rosa on this. So, Ms. Segura, are you available?
Yes. Good evening, Dr. Canales and members of the board. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy, for your question. And to answer that, any employee who has a underlying health condition and is requesting consideration, they may email their principal, their supervisor, Mr. De La Rosa at Risk Management, and myself with the details of their request, and we can assist them with that process. We do also have all of the COVID leave flow charts and the actual form available in our HR website, and anybody's welcome to visit our website. It is the first section located there, but if you need assistance, they can definitely reach out to us either by phone call or email.
Okay, so they start with their supervisor at the school.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I'll make the motion, Mr. Nieto, to go ahead and approve the transition plan, as long as administration follows things that we discussed here tonight. Yes, sir. With the plan.
I second that and reiterate on what Dr. Rivera just said, let's take everything into consideration. We're supporting what you're doing. I know it's a very challenging task, but we'll never compromise the safety of anyone. And the better we do this thing and take our time with this transition and respect everybody's wishes, I think the better off we're going to be, and we'll better work together to make this thing work and survive this thing together.
So we have a motion by Dr. Rivera, second by Coach Cuellar, to approve the transition to campus instructional plan. Any discussion? Any additional discussion? Dr. Jaime?
Dr. Canales, I commend you and your staff and everybody that was involved in putting this together. And I know it's not easy. These are not easy decisions, but thank you for all the hard work and for all the hard work that's yet to be done. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Jaime. Mr. Kennedy?
This just may be one of the most important votes that we're ever going to have to take during our time on the school board. And this has been a very tough season, I think, for everybody involved. Not only is everyone dealing with the threat of catching the virus and getting sick, but dealing with how do we best go forward and making sure that our students are getting adequate education, and that we're taking care of our needs as safety needs. I agree that giving our teachers, basically giving them an extra 3.5 weeks to teach from home and get ready to go back unless the state allows us to continue the waiver. But this problem is not, I know that there are some people who think we need extra PPE or we need something else. This isn't you versus us or you versus administration. This is us versus Corona. And the way we're going to get through this is if we work together. So if you think there's a safety concern or we need PPE or something like that on a campus, I encourage you to let your supervisor know, because the only way that we're going to get through this is if we work together. And the board is here to help the administration get through this. And we're going to give you all the support that we can, but we can't do it unless we have knowledge. And the administrators can't do it unless they're told from the bottom up. So if you're a teacher, you're a para, and you think, hey, I need more gloves, I need more hand sanitizer, let your supervisor know, and it'll make its way up to the board, and we can help make sure that you're getting what you need. I hope this transition helps, and I hope that if this, I think I speak for every member of the board here, and we hope that this saves at least one life, and it'll be worth it.
Mr. Lopez?
Yes, Dr. Canales and staff, it's this new norm thing. It's very difficult on all of you all and all of us. You know, the information is changing. I believe you were on the phone at 3:00 this afternoon with the Commissioner of Education and getting new updates on what's happening. And you know, once we start this transition, I know that there's going to be other issues that come up, and I know that working together and your staff is on point already, and I mean it shows that that we will get through this, you know, and everybody needs to know that we will get through this, you know, and moving forward, we will see brighter days, better days, and happier times, you know. So thank you for all you and your staff for doing to get us through this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
May I say one more thing?
Yes, sir.
That's one thing we didn't talk about, but the only students who are going to be coming back next week are ones with connectivity issues. And so, Dr. Canales, I was wondering, it seems to me that if we can solve the connectivity issues, we could also reduce the amount of students who are going to be coming back. So is it possible we can have the IT ready to go next week and see what we can do to solve and maybe minimize the connectivity issues?
I'm looking at our head IT person.
Carlos will follow up on it to make sure that
We'll
more
follow up.
students have that opportunity.
And we're going to need, you know, our teachers and our principals, you know, following up. They already have a feel for who is missing. You know, they know because they're working with the students every single day. Who still has issues? We've distributed a lot of hotspots and Chromebooks, so you know they have a good idea of that. So, but you're right. The more that we can provide connectivity, making sure everybody is connected to receive strong instruction remotely, the less students we can anticipate to have at our buildings.
Okay, the parents, teachers, you're watching this. Every student that you can work with to get their connectivity issues fixed is one less para, one less sub, one less person on campus who is possibly exposed to a greater amount of people with this virus. So please do what you can to fix the connectivity issues if you're aware of any. And let us know what we can do to help.
And just to be perfectly clear, the options that we're voting on are for our staff to continue to work from home by choice. And we are going to offer the volunteer basis so that those students that are on campus will have someone there, correct?
Yes,
Correct.
as presented.
All right, so we have a motion by Dr. Rivera,
One
second.
more thing real quick.
Yes,
I just
sir.
I want to commend staff, everyone, they worked very hard. And we're in challenging times. And I'm pretty sure they work 24/7 to get this plan implemented. I want to commend all staff, including Carlos Martinez, because he's the technology guy in his staff, responsible for things that need to be done. So I just want to commend everyone. And I know that together as a team, we'll hurdle this obstacle.
Thank you, Dr. Rivera.
Thank you, Dr. Rivera.
So we have a motion by Dr. Rivera, second by Coach Cuellar to approve the transition to campus instructional plan. All in favor, please say aye when I call your name. Mr. Kennedy?
Aye.
Dr. Jaime? Dr. Rivera?
Aye.
Coach Cuellar?
Aye.
Mr. Lopez?
Aye.
Motion carries. Do we have any public comments on this item? Carlos? Okay, so we'll continue with item 4. Discussion possible action for the board to approve submission of a second 4-week waiver to TA pertaining to reopening. Dr. Canales.
Week waiver to TA pertaining to the reopening and this transition plan.
I move to approve the submission of a second 4-week waiver.
We have a motion by Mr. Kennedy, and a second by Dr. Jaime. Yes. to approve the submission of a second 4-week waiver to TA pertaining to reopening. Any discussion? I'll start with Coach Cuellar.
I'm very much in favor of, getting that extra attention and anything we can do to help the transition and to bring it around slowly for the safety of our students, staff, everybody. I'm 100% behind that.
Thank you, Mr. Guerra.
Dr. Rivera?
I'm good.
Submission of a second 4-week waiver to TA pertaining to reopening.
And for clarification, Mr. Nieto, it's for the 5th through 8th week.
5th through 8th week, okay?
There needs to be, if there are any public comments on this item, they need to be heard prior to the board taking a vote.
Okay, so at this time, we'll go and
Oh, it came back on.
okay. Is Mrs. Lopez, are you, can you hear us?
I believe her phone is muted.
There? Okay, you're connected.
Okay, Mrs. Lopez, before you begin, let me read a script, all right?
Okay.
Pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Act, the Board of Trustees may not deliberate on any comment made by a member of the public on a subject that is not included on the agenda posted with notice of this meeting. As per the Texas Attorney General, the scope of the board discussion for a subject not part of the meeting agenda is limited only a proposal by a board member to place the subject on a future board agenda. Specific factual information of existing policy may be furnished in response to inquiries, but the board shall not deliberate or decide regarding any subject that is not included on the agenda posted with the notice of the meeting. Audience participation at a board meeting is limited to the portion of the meeting designated for that purpose. All other times during a board meeting, the audience shall not enter into discussion or debate on matters being considered by the board unless recognized by the presiding officer. No public comment presentation shall exceed 5 minutes. Any disruption behavior by any speaker may result in the speaker's removal from participation in the meeting. Please be mindful of using names or personal identifiable information. There is no immunity from comments while participating in public comments. Will you state your name and your address, Mrs. Lopez?
Yes, my name is Rosa Lopez, and I live in 1306 Turtle Creek Drive in Brownsville, Texas.
Welcome to the meeting, Mrs. Lopez. And you're going to have 5 minutes. So as soon as you start, Mr. Kennedy will have the 5 minutes and let you know a minute before that is almost time. All right?
Okay. I don't think I'm using the whole time because based on what I learned right now, some of the comments that I had prepared are sort of thrown out the window.
Okay.
Okay. So in terms of the submission of the second 4-week waiver, I think that would be something that's very good for the benefit of the teachers. And I think also that is, I want to commend also the school board for working hard in doing this. And I really do want to make sure that the board knows that teachers are fearful of going back to work for the things that were mentioned before. But also I know that everybody is working hard to continue to do this. I had prepared a statement, and I'm not sure whether it goes now, but I hope that you take note of the increasing numbers of COVID positive cases in our area and approve this second four additional week waiver until the valley is in the shape that it needs to be in order for us to go back to campus. I'm not sure, I've never participated in this, but I had other comments here. Please think about the teachers who are pouring their life into virtual learning. WISD teachers are being innovative and are doing great things to keep their students engaged. We got trained over the summer to do just this, work from home. So at this moment, I am very happy that we do not have to go to school and expose ourselves needlessly. I do feel for our students that are having those connectivity issues, but I also know that our district is doing the best that it can to fix those issues. And so in that aspect, I feel good that our students are getting an education even through these hard times. Also, I do want to, I'm not sure if I should say this, but teachers are certified, and the students will be in front of certified teachers, even if it's virtual. And I wanted to point that out. And also teachers have instructional support built into their schedule so that the students are not left hanging. And that's something that I do wanted to let the public know. Teachers are there for their students. This is in terms of the transition plan, so I'm not sure if I can say it or not.
It's up to you.
Okay. I also want to mention about the transition plan, the transition to campus. I know that it will be done in phases in order to minimize exposure. However, each phase, based on what I had before, each phase was 1 week. And there is where I think the problem is. If we are truly wanting to minimize and contain the spread of COVID in our campuses, each phase, or phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, how they explained it to us, should at least be 2 weeks. Each phase should last 2 weeks at least. It would, and I think it's because it would allow suspected cases to get tested and get the results back, and not expose other, and not, well, that's it. I think that each phase should last 2 weeks, not week 1, week 2, week 3. And now I'm talking about how it used to be before, so that this might be pertinent to the second submission of the 4-week waiver. And that's it.
Thank you, Mrs. Lopez. Do we have Mrs. Brenda Gutierrez available?
Mr. Martinez is getting her connected.
Can you hear us, Mrs. Gutierrez? Can you hear us, Mrs. Gutierrez?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so just mention your name and your address.
Brenda Gutierrez, address 2623 Honolulu Drive in Weslaco, Texas.
Okay, so you will have 5 minutes to present your presentation. Mr. Kennedy will be the timer, so he'll let you know if you go beyond the 5 minutes. As soon as you get started, he will stop the clock. Or begin the, my fault.
Good evening to all of the board members and the trustees. I have been listening in on obviously the meeting and how it's going. I am a parent. I do have a few children within the district. I myself was not from Weslaco, and I have been extremely proud of being a parent of my children that are in Weslaco. I speak very highly of all the decisions that the board members and the teachers. I love my children's teachers. I love my children's principals. They have been very attentive and very respectful to everything. But now me as a parent, and I'm speaking as a parent, right? I myself and my husband, we work full time, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. I do have a child who is in the lower levels, who myself, we're considered, I guess, essential, right? We've had to continue working since COVID happened. And I will say myself, I'm not, it's not anything that to be, I guess, embarrassed of, but we did have a member in our family that had COVID who was extremely sick. We took the precautions that we needed, and none of us within our household got the virus, and we're very blessed and thankful for that. However, right now, going into, week 5, week 6, I am a concerned parent who is worried what is going to happen when I have a child who is in 5th grade who looks at me. I myself, okay, I'm kind of going a little bit off track. I had to take the COVID Act leave in order to be at home with my 5-year-old who is having to be home and having to find somebody to watch him. I didn't have anybody to watch him. The daycares are not providing that service. Either I find a different daycare who is I'm gonna have to pay an additional expense to have my child, go through that. Now, if I wanted to put, again, I've assisted all of the meetings that the high school, the middle school and the elementaries have done. And I read the comments, and some parents are, they express their concerns, which everybody is entitled to do. But me as a working parent, I respect teachers, and I think very highly of them, but I don't think of them any more highly than a cafeteria worker or the janitorial staff that works for any of the state buildings, the people who work at the HEB, the people who work at the gas stations. And I see it as, we're going to take precaution. Yes, I myself work in an office with 100 employees, and I myself never, contracted COVID, thankfully. But we're in a position where, right now, I look at my son who's in 5th grade, and he looks at me with tears in his eyes, and he's like, "Mom, I don't understand this. I want to go back to school." They need, not necessarily, and the teachers have been taking their measures, and I'm beyond grateful for my children's teachers. They're taking that extra step. Hey, log in with me for a private, tutoring. They're doing all of that. But more importantly, I've taken my children to the pediatrician, and they've done this routinely now, where as soon as a child enters, how are you feeling emotionally? Are you depressed? Are you dealing with, and they've asked, and I asked the doctor, why are you guys asking this? And they're like, well, because we're experiencing and we're seeing a lot more children, because they're kids. Us as adults, we can cope certain ways. But when you have a child who is 5 years old, who my 5-year-old looks at me in the mornings and says, "Mom, I want to go to real school." And me, right now, I'm on that COVID Act. I'm getting paid 2/3 of my pay. So now it's affecting my household. When one of our family members had COVID, we had to take an additional 2 weeks off, and I was getting paid again 2/3 pay. Thankfully the teachers were able to be at home, and I'm grateful for the teachers, but I'm also grateful for, all the other employees and not just for the schools. So my concern is, again, I see that it has already passed. The motion has already been made, and there's nothing we can do about it, but just take that into consideration moving forward. If we do want to send our children, we should be allowed to do that if our children want to do that as well.
Thank you, Mrs. Gutierrez.
Thank you.
All right, we'll continue with person number 3. Is she available, Mr. Martinez? Mrs. Valdez, can you hear us? Not yet.
I went straight to voicemail.
Okay, so we'll continue. Mr. Perez? We gave an opportunity to third person, but wasn't able to log on, so we'll continue with our agenda. Item number 6, discussion of possible action for the board.
Item 4,
Item 4?
agenda item 4.
Oh, my fault. Yes, okay. We had a motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Dr. Jaime, to approve the submission of a second 4-week waiver to TA pertaining to reopening. All in favor, please say aye when I call you out your name. Mr. Kennedy?
Aye.
Dr. Jaime?
Aye.
Dr. Rivera?
Aye.
Mr. Lopez?
Aye.
Coach Cuellar? Aye. And motion carries. Let the record reflect that Mr. Gonzalez left the meeting at 6:30. All right, we'll continue to item 6. Discussions and possible action for the board to ratify approval of the purchase of student desk shields. Dr. Canales.
Trustees, on September 14, 2020, you delegated to me, Superintendent of Schools, the authority to approve purchases of PPEs, personal protective equipment, and other critical items needed for the protection of students and staff from approved purchasing cooperative vendors. So for this item, we want to ratify 6,000 student desk shields from Print Works of McAllen, Texas. We did obtain 6 quotes. While the Prince Work is not a purchasing cooperative or approved purchasing cooperative approved vendor, the purchase does not exceed 50,000. So we're seeking ratification of this item.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Lopez and a second by Mr. Kennedy to ratify approval of the purchase of student desk shields. Any discussion?
These items have already been ordered, Doc,
Yes, sir. They're in
Purchase.
stock. They're in stock.
and they're safety items, so there's no issue with that. I mean, if it's being a safety item, we need it.
Thank
Will
you,
they be
sir.
delivered in time for the instruction next week?
They're in already. I don't know if they've been delivered to every single campus. I'm going to ask Mr. Sanchez to respond to that, or Mr. Peña.
We have received at least, I believe, 3,750. We should get the rest by tomorrow.
Okay.
Unless we already got more today.
When do you think you can distribute them to the campuses?
Orlando, you on the line?
Hello, yes,
I know
I'm here.
Okay.
Yes, we will deliver tomorrow. Whatever we have in stock will be delivered tomorrow.
Thank you. Coach Cuellar, you had a comment?
No, I was going to say, for safety reasons, they're as effective as plexiglass. However, they do tend to hide little things that happen behind the scenes. So are we prepared to work with those possible issues should they become problematic?
Real issues. We're going to try to be ahead of it, but with the observation in the classrooms, with the proctors, we'll just make sure that we're paying attention to that, so that nothing is hidden that shouldn't be there.
Those were perfect when I used to give tests so that nobody could cheat from somebody else. So they're very effective for that.
And that's what we plan to use them for when the pandemic's over one day.
Yeah,
If needed.
they'll serve a purpose. No question about it.
The white ones the students are using, are those plastic?
There, Mr. Sanchez, do you want to talk about the material they're made of, or Mr. Riojas? They explained it to me as, go ahead.
It's a 4 millimeters corrugated plastic.
So we can use antibacterial wash on them?
Yes, yes.
Correct, yes.
That was where I was going. Thank you.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Lopez, second by Mr. Kennedy, to ratify approval of the purchase of student desk shields. As I call your name, please say aye if you are in favor. Mr. Kennedy?
Aye.
Dr. Jaime?
Aye.
Dr. Rivera?
Aye.
Mr. Lopez?
Aye.
Clerk Cuellar? Aye. Motion carries. Let's continue to item 7. Discussion and possible action for the board to consider approval of the purchase of 24 aluminum light poles with LED pole light fixtures to be installed at B. Garza Middle School. Dr. Canales.
Board of Trustees, we're pulling this item. We are taking a look at the poles and the, I guess, the structural things of them before bringing it in. So we need a little bit more time for this one. We're pulling. We'd like to pull this one.
You gonna pull it?
Pull it, yes.
Okay, so we're gonna pull it. No action. All right, let's continue on to item 8. Discussion and possible action for the board to approve whole life insurance. Dr. Canales.
Board of Trustees, this item was placed on the agenda at the request of 2 board members. It's for supplemental insurance, and we open it up for discussion at this point.
I know we had a workshop on it, so on that. So if I can entertain a motion and then we can discuss it, or let me know what the board wants to
Yeah,
do on
this
this one.
this is something that's optional, and if an employee wishes to get it, then it's up to the employee.
That's the way I understand that it would be voluntary. And Mr. De La Rosa, can speak to that. He's in the building. But that
I'm here, just coach.
It was a voluntary product?
offered before as a voluntary project in recent history. Mr. De La Rosa, do you have any additional details?
No, there was a workshop that was presented a couple weeks ago, and the pros and cons were discussed. There was no, at that time, there was no direction at the time whether to proceed with it or not. But like I said, I'm here if you have any questions.
This agenda item is like wide open, and it has no detail at all, and we have no backup. So what are we able to do here? Because I mean, first of all, we're not buying it. We're approving you guys to go out and solicit bids, or what is it that we're giving you here?
That would be one option, Mr. Lopez, if you wanted to solicit for proposals. That's something that could be done if that was the intent of the board.
Well, it has to be done according to the law, so what are we allowed to do? Ivan, can you give us a direction on this?
If the board is inclined to want to seek this product to offer it to the employees, then you can approve authorizing the administration to solicit proposals. Tonight, you cannot select an insurance product. Tonight, you cannot select an agent. Those aren't items on the agenda. And they need, the product needs to be competitively bid out. So, and you can approve it for this year, or if you think it's too late in the year, you want to say give some authority to just do it next year. Those are things that are within your parameter to do under this agenda item.
Well, if we're able to do it for this year, it'd be a nice thing to offer to our employees. So I would make a motion to allow administration to go out for bids on the whole life insurance and present back to the board.
In the workshop, we discussed, just a basic whole life plan, nothing that would involve investment options of that sort. So, I'll second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Lopez, second by Dr. Jaime. Use the whole life insurance and allowing the administration to go out for bids, correct, Mr. Lopez?
That's correct.
Any other discussion?
May I make a comment?
Totally voluntary, okay?
I remember.
May I make a comment?
Go ahead, Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah. If I may, can the motion say to go out for proposals and not for bids,
Okay.
please?
I'll amend my motion.
Thank you.
Mr. Kennedy?
Oh, yes, I think when it was presented at the workshop a couple weeks ago, Roger Garza, our insurance consultant, said that they were presenting it because some teachers had asked about this product. So I think there's some interest, so I'll support this.
All right, so we have a motion by Mr. Lopez, second by Dr. Jaime, to approve the whole life voluntary insurance and allow administration to go up for proposals, correct? All right, let's vote on the motion as I call out your name. Mr. Kennedy?
Aye.
Dr. Jaime?
Aye.
Dr. Rivera?
Aye.
Mr. Lopez?
Aye.
Coach Cuellar?
Aye.
Motion carries. All right, we'll continue on with matters discussed in executive session. Item A, personal matters, employment of personnel. Dr. Canales.
Board of Trustees recommended that you approve the appointment of personnel as discussed in closed session.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Jaime and a second by Mr. Kennedy to approve employment personnel as discussed in executive session. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye when I call out your name. Mr. Kennedy?
Aye.
Dr. Jaime?
Aye.
Dr. Rivera?
Aye.
Mr. Lopez?
Aye.
Coach Cuellar?
Aye.
Motion carries. Resignations, number 2, Dr. Canales.
Board of Trustees, I recommend that you approve the resignations as discussed in closed session.
Second.
We have a motion by Dr. Jaime, a second by Coach Cuellar?
Yes.
Okay. To approve the resignations as discussed in executive session. All in favor, please say aye. Mr. Kennedy?
Aye.
Dr. Jaime?
Aye.
Dr. Rivera?
Aye.
Mr. Lopez?
Aye.
Coach Cuellar?
Aye.
Motion carries. Deliberation regarding acquisition of real property, no action,
No action.
correct? And that's the last item on the agenda. Adjournment? All right, we got Dr. Jaime, and it is 8:36. Good job, board members.
Stay safe.